Welcome to The Best of Intentions, a podcast from Intention Films and Media, hosted by writer, director, former film commissioner, and novelist Deborah Markowitz. So join us as we talk about all things creative.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Best of Intentions. We are not able to get into the studio for another few weeks, I believe, so we'll be doing this via Zoom. Pardon my technology. We haven't had time to update things, but we'll get there at some point. But I'm very excited to have a filmmaker who happens to share the same distributor I do for my film Waitlist, A Love Your Story. And probably he's the first guest that I haven't actually ever met before. So this should be interesting. And I take it on a recommendation from my good pal, Sal Rendino, that you are, in fact, one of the good ones, which also happens to be the name of your movie. So I would like to welcome Tom. Did I pronounce
Paolino.
it? Okay, so that's it. We got it.
Yeah, good to be here.
Welcome. So you're not actually a lawyer, but your uncle is a lawyer. Is that what you were telling me, or are you a lawyer?
I come from a long line of servants to the community, lawyers, teachers. This this bench behind me is actually the Supreme Court bench of the state of Rhode Island, where my grandfather was a Supreme Court judge, who I'm named after.
Wonderful. Did you know that Sal Rendino actually was a lawyer?
I did not know that Sal Rendino was a lawyer, but I'm not surprised. He's a gentleman and a scholar and a very good actor.
Yes, he is. He's amazing. And he plays in my new feature, a couple of guys, he actually plays a lawyer, and I think that's how I found out. I was writing something down. He goes, well, and then he started giving me some background. I'm like, things you don't know about people. I wanted to be a lawyer. I actually was studying for my LSAT. And I let my ex talk me into waiting a year, and then I got pregnant, and then that was the end of that. So instead, I'm a filmmaker, So
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. And a very prolific one.
Yeah, we get a lot done. We're a little crazy at the moment, but it's all good. It's all good. Best thing in the world, hardest thing in the world. So tell me a little bit about your background. You started just as an actor, correct, before you became a producer?
Correct. Well, I actually came from an athletic background. I was a recruited hockey player and went to Brown University and had an injury, which turned me toward acting as a sophomore there, and haven't looked back. I've been coaching hockey now and acting and making films, and my film is happily on Prime Video now since March 6th. One of the good ones is doing great, and yeah, I love being with indie rights and living in New York City, and life is good.
That's really cool. So one thing I learned, I started my educational career at Nassau Community College, and they would have auditions for the school show every year. And an amazing amount of people who were football players would get the lead roles, even though they were not acting students. I always say athletes make the best actors. We don't know why. I don't know why. Do you know why?
I do. I have some ideas about it. I mean, Sam Rockwell comes to mind. There's quite a few of us, and I think it has a lot to do with discipline. As an athlete, I was trained to practice every day, and it's no different with acting. Actors get better the more they act, and somehow I think that gets lost in the glimmer of show business. But actors need to act every day, just like hockey players need to skate every day.
True. And then also an amazing amount of lawyers also become actors, which makes sense because you're kind of performing in the courtroom. Yeah, you have to know your stuff, but you do have a presence to put on. So that made sense to me. That the athletic one, but you're right, the discipline, because it's so necessary. I work with I like to work with young actors that I find that have a lot of talent. And one thing I always tell them, you may have an incredible amount of natural talent. Go study with a teacher, go learn something different, always elevate yourself no matter what you do. Now, you said it's important to act every day. How do you do that? How do you keep something going every day?
I have a list of acting actions that I execute on a daily basis. One of them comes to mind. I read aloud for 10 minutes every single day. I've gone through volume after volume of fiction and nonfiction, and just lifting words off of the page spontaneously. Of course, that helps with cold reading. Just the imagination, absorbing stories. I mean, that's what we do. And I love it. I also do yoga every single day, and yoga is one of the best things for acting in my experience because it's yoga is a Sanskrit word for union, and I also teach yoga. And what I tell my students is this isn't about turning into a pretzel. This is about uh, modifying the circumstances so that they are in union with who you are. And that's a lot of what we do as actors, right? Like my job is to reveal something universal in myself through the character, through the circumstances. And in order to do that, I need to be able to make it my own.
I love that. What type of yoga do you teach, or is it a mixture?
I teach vinyasa yoga, which is flow yoga, and I'm teaching tonight. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, we just went back. I studied for, gotta be 10 years with one, I don't know if you want to call her instructor, teacher, whatever. And then she got sick. And we studied with another teacher for a few years. But then I got so busy making movies that I would attend one every 5 classes. And I said, all right, at this point, it's just not happening. So I did it at home for a very long time. And then just, things happen, kids move back, all kinds of fun stuff. So that got put on hold, but we just went back about a month and a half ago, and I'm so happy. Um, and the place I go to has something like 60 classes a week, so I can always find one that I can make, even if it's not my usual one. But I'm in Vinyasa right now. I just took again, and I found how challenging it is. It's
Yeah.
like challenging,
Do you
but
do it on? Yeah, it is, and that's one of the great values of it is it on the yoga mat, all everything comes out on the yoga mat, and when that adversity arrives and the mind starts to do tumble weeds and tumble salts, I'm making up words here as I go. We're able to breathe and stay calm under extraordinary circumstances. So, do you do yoga online or do you in person or?
listen, yeah, I found a studio that's like 5 minutes from the house, which is great. And it was recommended by a filmmaker. I posted online, like, okay, who's got a great yoga class out there? And somebody DM'd me and said, well, my wife teaches at Blue Lotus, and they offered me a free class. And I went, and I'm like, that might have started with the yin because it's been a while. And it was more challenging than I remember because she did a lot of different poses than I'm used to, but it was like, oh, I like this. And then every Wednesday, because that's when she teaches for like a month. We're filming this Wednesday again, and then I have an interview the Wednesday after with the radio station. And I'm like, so I figured just jump into vinyasa, which is what I've been wanting to get back into. So eventually, I hope I can do both. But right now, time permitting doesn't really allow that. But I
Yeah.
like the availability of all these different classes. So that's working out for me. I like that.
Same. When I got my film through post-production, I had a period where I wasn't practicing except for the days that I teach and I'm so glad to be back. I came back myself recently and it's I think once the yoga seed is planted, it really is there and when we leave, we come back. So congratulations for being back.
Thank you. I've been wanting to for so long. So it's just like, yeah, for that. What you were saying about when you try and do acting every day and you lift the words off the page, when I'm writing, and unfortunately there's not a lot of that going on right now because I've got Waitlist was just released, Waitlist, a lover story, because we've got From the Embers is in post and we're actively filming a couple of guys. So it's just been, I want to get back to writing. But I actually act out every character because if it doesn't flow, you can hear it when you do that, and then you have a reading at some point. But it's funny, I'm John's used to me by now, but all the different voices coming from my office and trying to make sure that everything feels really authentic. So that's kind of a cool thing. So it's probably something similar. You're reading it and you're playing all the actors, I'm assuming, all the different characters as you're doing it.
Well, I read, for example, what comes to mind is novels that I've read. Like right now, I'm reading a book called My Friends, which I love. Uh, I've gone through multiple novels, reading 10 minutes a day. It's amazing how much you can read if you do it consistently. And yeah, I mean, I read a lot of spiritual literature. I read everything really. I mean, yesterday I went to the Raphael exhibit at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and now I'm reading all about Raphael. So it just depends.
I mean, just like my movies are just like what I read. I usually lately have been listening to books because I can combine that with walking or being on a treadmill or even lifting weights. So I'm still kind of reading while I'm doing something, but I usually try to take, if I can, 5 to 10 minutes a night and just to read, a few pages to keep up because I love reading. I always love reading. I used to have
Yeah.
a fantasy of like reading every book in the library, and I'm like, I'm gonna do that one day, which of course, it doesn't happen.
Yeah, and it gives inspiration for our own works. Yeah, it's nice like that.
Now, were you a writer also?
I wrote a novel. I've written a lot of poetry, some short stories, a screenplay or two. But it's funny, when I made my film, one of the good ones, I started to really get clear about zones of genius and was able to recognize zones of genius in my crew, for example, and in myself. And what I learned was I'm really an actor producer. The writing I left to the writers, and I was very, very blessed to have two amazing writers, Vincent Scarcella and Julie O'Hora, who combined to write our script. And I'm really glad I stepped away from directing. I stepped away from the things and just honed in on acting and producing.
Yeah, I mean, we all find our strengths, and a number of times people will write something, and I don't have generally a lot of time for that. But if it's somebody that I know I'm going to collaborate with, it's like, okay, like Michael Fideli, who I uh, collaborated on 3 or 4 projects already, but two that have already been filmed. And he'll usually write something, I look at him like, no, no, no. It's like he's a great storyteller, but things could be too wordy. I'll
Yeah.
go for do a little scraping, change the ending, do whatever, send it back, and he'd be like, yes. And then he acts. Then he's generally the lead actor. Or he'll give me an idea. For example, the Christmas movie that we now have the pitch deck for, and as soon as I can breathe, we'll be working on the business plan. But he gave me the original idea, and I'm like, okay, now just don't talk to me about it. If I need you, I'll let you know, because I'm kind of a solitary writer. And I'll say, okay, I want to make sure that everything I write could actually happen. So I said, so if this happened, what would be the things that would put it into place? And then he'll come back to me with all kinds of research, and or if this happened, is it likely? And then he'll find clips and goes, yes, it actually happened. It's like, okay, good, good. Because I do want to make sure that even when things seem crazy, they're actually something that could happen. So, we
Sure.
just totally have a relationship. But is he a writer? Yeah, he's a storyteller, and I'm a storyteller, but his more comes out in acting, where mine more comes out in writing. So we all have our thing.
Yeah, and isn't it wonderful to collaborate that way? I was just telling someone I had an intern from Brown actually who looked at my script and our script and said, I'm not sure why the lead character is so passionate about justice. Um, Maybe there's something in his past that ratchets up the stakes as far as his desire to get the bad guy. And it turns out there was a surgeon in Buffalo who had had a few too many drinks after golfing at the country club and killed a young woman on the way home and had gotten off because he was such an esteemed member of that society and et cetera. And we took that, talk about a true story, and basically pasted it into one of the good ones. And I'll always be grateful to Luke, the intern who gave that feedback. And I mean, I love that about making film. I call film the ultimate team sport.
Oh yeah, yeah. If you have a great team, I mean, that's really everything. The director generally gets the credit. The writer never gets enough credit unless they're also the director. Um, but yeah, I mean, everything matters. And I know they always say you can't have a good movie without a good script. Yes, but you can have a great script, and if your actors can't act, you don't have a movie. And if you have a great script, but your camera person can't shoot, you don't have a movie. I mean, if your sound is terrible, you don't have a movie. So everything's really important. Um,
Yeah,
the director technically picks the people for the most part, so maybe that contributes to it, but it's you need it all. You need every person on that set to care, to care about the movie. And
absolutely.
you don't have to be necessarily best friends per se, but it works better when everybody is a team. Um, I know that I just love the team I have right now. When I work for people, sometimes they come with their own team, and then I've got to build that rapport. But or it'll take a few of my people if they need. But we always finish on time or early because we have a short term. We know that, this has to get done the minute that scene is cut. Everybody's moving everything. If we're moving on, you don't have to tell people. They know what we have to do, and that's just such a great relationship thing. And like with Sal and Lucas and Abby um, from a couple of guys, they'll say to me, "Hey, I don't think my character would do that. I think they would do this, and what do you think?" And I'll think about it, and if it makes sense, then we go with that. It's the ultimate collaboration. So yeah, I love it. I love it. It's there's a reason they call it a film family. Hopefully you like them better than your family.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's interesting. There is a science to it, and I studied it very carefully. As far as the team that became the family on my shot, on my film, it really got solidified when I removed certain people. You know what like I had a culture in mind that was very specific, and if and the culture like synergized when I picked out who didn't fit for whatever reason, and I think if I had had anyone that didn't fit, it would have the boat would have had a leak. And thankfully, my boat didn't have a leak, and we're all still close and had a great premiere in Buffalo and everything. Even I was just telling my friend yesterday who's making a film, like even the investors are part of the family. Like I wanted investors that fit the culture of kindness, or well, certainly that was part of my culture. And I found that because my friend was, he's raising money. He was like, when do you pop the question, et cetera? I was like, well, to be honest, what popped in my head was I had two investors who asked me to invest. They said, how can I get involved in this? And it was all because I had picked people who fit the culture, and they just felt a part of it because they were naturally connected in terms of the values that I was pulling together. And there wasn't really, in a few cases, there it wasn't necessary to ask for anything. It just happened organically.
Talk to people about the project, and you're so passionate about it. Sometimes people will say, they want to get involved. My first two films I all did crowdfunding on, and and it's very hard to keep asking people for anything, $10, $50. And there was a few people that just I also I'm looking at who just gave me $4,000. Who just and I would look at the person like I just love the way you talk about the movie. And people I didn't even know. So a lot of times that's what pushes you up. If you believe in the project, the team, that matters. That matters. Sometimes um, people fall away because they need to, and you get people that really are so solidified in there. And sometimes they move up, and sometimes you move up. If you know the people are really good, you want to bring them with you because you want it to benefit everybody. You know, and sometimes people just fall away. It's just what has to happen. But yeah, you want people who are happy to be there. Their job, they know how to
Right.
be friendly without excluding other people. They know how to um, really keep the team all together. And I always say that we work so much that I don't really have a lot of, actually, I don't really have any parties anymore. But whenever we have like a crew lunch, it's like, this is the closest I get to a dinner party. It's like everybody I create with is we're all sitting there just hanging out. We know we're going to go back and have a great time. And, you really get to really care about these people, because you create, you birth something together, you
Absolutely.
and you want them to be as happy about the end product as you are, and it all takes the right people, the editor who understands what you're doing, the DP who knows, understands the project and your concept. There's just so much of it, but you're right, it's an ultimate union, an ultimate union experience, working
Yeah. And you
that.
said it yourself, Debbie, where they care. You know what I mean? And why do they care? They care because they, in my case, believe that if you put good energy out there, good energy will come back. Not everybody believes that. So they're not going to care about a movie that's fundamentally rooted in that principle, unless they're on board with the idea at the heart of the film. Um, so. So I think really people that care uh, make the difference. Um, I care very much about my film. I had very good coaching as I went through pre-production, and one of the things I came to was I think suggested to me, just make a film that you would want to own, make a film that you would want to see, and I have very eclectic taste in films. Like I just and but that goal really simplified things for me as far as I'm not following trends. I don't I just want to make a movie that I would find important to keep in my own library, and I'm happy to have done that, and like I've heard and believe, if I care about it, if it means something to me, it's going to mean something to other people. It's not going to mean something to everyone, just like not everyone's going to care about the project, but you find your people, you know?
You can find your audience. I've had to come to terms with that. I've had people who I've worked with who they don't want to get involved with certain projects because they feel that it's off their brand. I don't have a brand other than to really pour myself into whatever it is I'm doing. And in a way, it's an odd thing because Waitlist, a love story, is a romance, basically a rom com, pretty much. Even though there's certainly dramatic elements. But the next movie that we did called From the Embers, which is in post right now, was a very dark drama about addiction and about a trauma and somebody who can't relate getting involved with somebody who feels she can save him. And it's very dark, and the acting is incredible. And I made the difficult decision of doing a completely non-union, even though Waitlist had been union. So I have no names in this, but I just believed in the concept so much that I picked the actors I knew could do the job I needed them to do. And then a couple of guys is an LGBTQ feature. Now it's still a romance and a dramedy, I guess it is. Um, and it's going to be very different. You know that the people who are supposed to see it and they're going to resonate with it, those are the people you're doing it for. Not everybody's going to like it.
Yeah.
Not everybody's rom com. We have a horror feature after that, a Christmas and a horror feature. Nothing matches, but it's what I feel called to do. And
Yeah.
I have to listen to your heart. And if
Yeah.
this is something that totally excites you, you're supposed to do it. So you find a way to do it.
Amazing. I mean, and I love how you and I met through Indie Rights too, because I've met some really cool people through Indie Rights I mean, for you guys at home, Indie Rights is the distributor, and what's one of the great things about them is that there's a Facebook group, a private Facebook group of 927 Indie Rights filmmakers, and we watch each other's films, and I've met some amazing people. So yeah, I mean the journey, not the destination. Of course, I want to make money, but um, the money comes. I think the money comes when the energy is good and the energy is clean and there's like thought and love and purpose and of course a lot of effort. I'm in the marketing promotion period now, which is a whole nother education.
A lot of
But
work.
yeah, it's a lot of work, and I'm blessed to have an investor who has a very successful company, and he said they go to trade shows all the time, and they've been around for 20 years, multi-million-dollar company, and he said he's amazed after all of these years going to trade shows and people who have no idea about his company. So there's a lot of people out there looking for a good films to watch and I feel like those people deserve to see my film, so I'll reach out, I'll outreach them. you know
I didn't realize, this is certainly going to prepare me for the next one. We did one feature several years ago, and the only reason we did it was because I'd done a multitude of shorts and pilots, both for ourselves and for other people. And I told John Marine, my husband and business partner, I said, it's time for me to do a feature. I need to do a feature. So I figured, all right, let me figure out what I can do. What can I do really cheaply, as inexpensively, because we didn't have the money for it. And so we decided that we would train our entire crew. So except for occasionally a professional gaffer, and except for hair and makeup, we pretty much trained everybody and did all the pre-production ourselves and all the post-production ourselves. We bought all our own equipment, knowing we were going to make a lot of films after this, and we did. But it was so much work, and I didn't. Oh, I had three friends who had been wanting to work with me, and I said, "Well, I don't really have the money yet." And they all said, "We'll work for free. We just want to. It's very hard to get leading roles. We'll just, as long as you work with our schedule, we'll do it." So it took us like 6.5 months to film it because I had to work with their schedules. But we got it done. It's on Tubi. It's called "The Only Woman in the World." It's a film. It's a pretty good film. Waitlist, I personally think it's a lot better. We had all more professional people, and I knew a lot more what I was doing at that point. But I did not know until Waitlist was released how much work went into promotion. I had no idea how much had to go into marketing.
yeah
So the first weekend it was released, because it came out on Prime Video much quicker than it was supposed to. So John and I spent the whole weekend going, "Oh, okay, deliverables. What do I need for the PR person? We just spent days putting everything together for her so she could do her job, and
yep
now I know for the next one what I have to have available so we can have it available before we even sign somebody up, but
100%, 100%. I don't
it's
know if you are aware of Terry Winnan's indie rights film, The Days Ahead,
yeah,
but Terry Winnan's film, The Days Ahead, is an indie rights film that did really, really well in its first 6 weeks. So I called Terry Winnan's, and he told me that he was on Facebook groups for apocalyptic people who love anything about apocalypse themed material a year before the film was released. So they were waiting for it to come out. And of course, those numbers spiked when it did come out. Um, and other things, like if you look at the poster for The Days Ahead, it's got like the profile of a person with a mask, like you would wear if there was I hate talking about this stuff, but it's good for marketing. The mask, if there was an apocalypse, and like a orange, you can see, even if you put your phone out here, you can see that it's an orange nuclear explosion and the mask, and you can see, and he did this deliberately, like that if you hold your phone out here, you know exactly what that movie is about. Um,
that's
yeah, so a lot of cool things to be learned and absorbed, and it's so cool that you have John, because the other thing I learned from my producing teacher Elad Tier is that you can't do this alone. Like, you need a partner in this, and I've had great partners in this. Certainly Vincent Scarcella, but and then also Julie O'Hora, the two writers, were my main partners, right? You know, like you can call them and bounce things off, and man, the buddy system works.
Oh, it has to. I really would still be making movies, but when John and I walking the dog, we get 5,000 ideas, and if I'm stuck, it's we'll go over things. John just started actually writing somewhat recently. John had no learning curve. He wrote something once. I'm basically the writer. He's our DP, or if we happen to have a DP for a certain project, he'll do sound or he'll be the AD. He does a lot of things on set. I write and direct, cast on occasion. Pretty much that's it. So, I'll come up with an idea and we'll flesh it out. But John decided, it was actually a year or two ago now. He wrote something, and I knew he'd be a great writer. John knows words and verbiage, and he loves a lot of different things, sci-fi and whatever. So he's a prolific reader, and so he gives me the first draft of, I think it was Trailer Park Afterlife, if I'm correct. And I read it, and I'm like, this is actually pretty good. It could use this or that, but it's actually pretty good. And the next day, he hands me this amazing script. I was like, do you have a learning? I could get this in 2 tries, but he did. And it won all kinds of awards all over the place. I think the first 3 competitions he entered in, he won for best genre screenplay. And then he wrote a time travel piece, which also won in quite a few film festivals, because he gets it. He's got this vast thing of knowledge, but he helps me get done the things that I want to get done. The minute I say, hey, I have this idea and I want to do this, like with Only Woman in the World, we'll sit down and go, okay, let's figure out how you can do it. And then he'll come up with the idea, and he's got all the technology stuff down, and I kind of suck at technology. Technology does not necessarily like me very much. I can do one thing perfectly well and it doesn't work, and he'll come over and pretty much wave his hand over the computer doesn't work.
Yeah,
So we have our strength, but it's cool to have somebody who understands the business.
yeah,
Uh, and the interesting thing is, before we met about 20 years ago, I would not date in the industry. Absolutely not. I ran the Nassau County Film Commission. I was the president of the Long Island Film and TV Foundation, which runs the Long Island International Film Expo, going on 29 years. And I was a casting director, is how I started. And there's too much to gain by sucking up to me, and I didn't want to get involved in that. Like a rich person, do they like me for my money, or do they like me because of what I can do for them? So
right,
I
right.
and when I met John, he had actually stepped out. He was a theater guy, uh, running crews that like built the first Nickelodeon sets and the music videos for Spike Lee for Do the Right Thing and Broadway and off Broadway. So he had a whole kind of background in the arts. He had stepped out, became a teacher because he had young children at the time and he wanted to be home for them. And so when I met him, he was teaching. So and then I dragged him back in with me. And now it's what we do. It's the whole company.
Yeah,
But yeah, you gotta have the person. And if it's not a spouse, I happen to be really lucky. His office is right on the other side of the wall. So if I have
yeah,
a question, he comes in, he's running this podcast for us. But you have to have somebody, and consider my editor, whatever editor I'm using, as a partner, because they need to understand what I want. For a couple of guys, we started with a different DP because it's been going on about 9 years now, this project, and we wanted to stay with the same person, so it would have the same sensitivity that he has. Mark Ryu, who's a brilliant DP, he's also editing it. He's a different editor than I usually use, but he's a brilliant editor. But he gets what I want.
yeah,
I can sit down and say, Mark, for this movie, and then he'll start telling me exactly what I'm thinking before I get to say it. And you have to have that combination. Um, as a director or the producer, you make all the shots in it, but these creative partners are invaluable.
There's yesterday when I was at the Raphael exhibit yesterday, they talked a lot about the relationship between Leonardo da Vinci and Raphael, and they said that da Vinci um, taught Raphael to just sketch fast, just let it rip, just like let it out before you can think about it, just let it out, let it out, let it out, and so yeah, I mean these connections are they're essential really to artists, right? And like I mean, I gained from the Raphael exhibit because when I do self tapes now as an actor, when I audition on self tapes, I really like to create the environment of the set. I really like to because on the set it's like we have to get this shot. Everybody feels that, right?
Yeah.
Even if it's the first shot of the day, it's like if we take too much time on this shot, we're now behind. So we have to from the very first shot we have to get it. And I like to I don't know if I do this subconsciously or not, but I like to set it up so that I have to get the take that I can use because it's due in an hour. And I end up doing what Leonardo was trying to teach Raphael about just getting it out there, just letting it rip. And I went actually another film I'm in was at CineQuest. So I went to San Jose and went to the CineQuest Film Festival recently, and there was a brilliant actress in one of those films there that I saw, and she is from LA. She studies at the Groundlings, and she inspired me to go to Upright Citizens Brigade out here in New York, because that's the other way to do that, right? Is just to improvise so that you can't stop yourself or think or hold yourself back in any way. It's too late. It's already out there, you know?
I been working with this young actor a lot, who's just so good, and he's such a natural. Travis Grant, who's the lead in Waitlist, but he started at Upright Citizens Brigade. So
Oh yeah.
he started as a comedian, so he's so right on, from the very beginning because he's used to doing improv and having to really pay attention, and that was invaluable training, for him. So he's much newer to acting, but because he has that background as a stand-up comedian and whatnot, that um, he just knows how to connect, which is so important. It's not some actors, that you've seen that, they memorize the lines and maybe they're good at expressing it, but um, they're waiting to say their line and they're not connected.
Yeah, and to say it the way they rehearsed it at home, whereas I like Travis, I liked his performance a lot. He was there's something really interesting about an actor who is present and enjoying the process, and he definitely was doing both of those things.
Oh, yeah. And it's fun to it's great to watch. I love watching great actors. I usually will let the scenes go on a little too long because I want to see what little extra they're going to add to it. Like I don't know, you were the one who mentioned Bobby Classy in one of my movies.
Oh yeah, I love him.
He is the best. He's great to work with, and he will always add something. I mean, we'll spend weeks on the phone discussing a role, but I know if I let the camera run 30 seconds longer, he's going to do something hilarious that I'm probably going to keep.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's amazing. So
He and I have exchanged some messages on Facebook, and he always puts like the acting logo, the tragic face and the happy face, and then a heart. So yeah, he you can feel it. He just loves it so much. Yeah.
he's so freaking good at it. And my first movie, in fact, that we just put on YouTube recently, it's called The Last Taxi Driver. It was my first movie he was in, and the first movie that I ever made. And he was so freaking hilarious in that. It's, I mean, the movie is better than it has a right to be because the script was just a very silly script. We wanted to do something. I'd already been casting and producing for other people, and I wanted to do something fun. And it was like, well, do we just get no names? Do we try to get a name? What if I get names and it sucks? And well, then it can't suck. So then we better get a good team because I'm going to be judged more harshly than anybody else since I run a film festival. I'm the film commissioner. You run a film festival that it's very competitive, and everybody who doesn't get in will be like, see what that film's like, So it's like,
Yeah.
gotta be good. And he was so wonderful, and we started writing a feature based on The Last Taxi Driver. We're about 30 pages in, but I have a lot of projects to finish before then. If we do get to do it, though, he's just a great, absolutely great. He's the story. He's the story. He's absolutely hilarious, and he is amazing to work with. He really loves what he does. He becomes that character no matter what it is. Loves a challenge, so that's always fun. Um, and he was in Well Waitlist. You knew that. He plays the father. And
Yeah, no, I really, he's a great person to introduce like a younger actor or any actor to because um it's like actors like that teach people how to live. You know what I mean? Like he's so connected to life, and that's what people are paying for. They I don't know, they're pulling teeth as a dentist or whatever they're doing, and it's easy to forget like what it feels like to be connected to life. And sometimes even I'm sure Bob himself sometimes needs a reminder of what it looks like and feels like to be like, yeah, you know what? This is it. Let's go.
look, he's a blast. I was so happy to bring him into Waitlist. That also was one I was going to do 9 supposed to be a 1 day short film that grew into a feature. And all right, I can do a 9 and then I started thinking about I actually think the story's pretty good, and I don't know if I'm doing it justice if I can't get the very best people I can get. I knew I had solid leads, but I was considering the other people. And once I texted, so everybody who's in it, I know. So it's really easy to go, hey, Bobby, I got a film. And he was just like, didn't even have to see it. He just went, Mark Woods and Classy together again. And just jumped right in. And he just loved it. And I said to him, who do you want to play your wife? I mean, I have suggestions. Who do you want? And he said, what about Tara? I said, oh, God, I've been waiting to work with Tara. I've met her, but I hadn't worked with her before, Tara Westwood. Oh, my God. Was she amazing as the mother and as his wife? So hilarious. And I'd never seen her do comedy before. And she is hilarious. You
Yeah.
know,
He has that
um,
dry sense of humor. Yeah.
yeah, it was so great. And she asked me if she could post it after. She goes, because people don't see me that way. I do horror films or I do drama. So it's the first time she really got to do that. She loved it.
That's amazing. Wow. Congratulations, Debbie. I love that. That what a gift to her, right? To give an opportunity like that.
I know it was a gift to us. I mean, she was amazing on set. Actually, the only person I hadn't met was I hadn't met Kim Director yet, who plays the friend Allie. And so she asked me, Cara, we weren't up to that part yet. She said, did you cast this character yet? I said, no, I mean, I have the ideas, but I haven't approached anyone. And she goes, what about so and so? I'm like, if you'll introduce me, I absolutely want Kim. And oh, she was amazing. And I can't wait to work with her again. I can't wait to work with them all again. Um, but it's so cool when I'm dealing with the union and like, well, and when you play with people, I'm like, well, they're all friends. So I said, no, I text and say, hey, you want to make a movie? And I got a text back, yeah, let's do it. And that's really super helpful as well. But I was excited to have Beck and Travis work with names. If neither one had worked with names before, and it was such a great symbiotic relationship. And Beck would text me, oh my God, so and so was so generous, and Kim was so generous as an actress, and Classy and Tar just loved Travis. And Tara even recommended him for a World War II movie that he flew out to be in right after we finished with. And it's because she saw, the potential, in a new actor. And so he went to Virginia and filmed that. And I love when that happens. I love when you find good people because you want to help them. You want to give them that step up, and then, eventually they'll probably maybe support you, maybe not, but you know that you need to help them because
Yeah.
look what your project, and
You
that's
know, I think I think you're really blazing a trail, Debbie. I mean, I'm so happy for you. And it really it resonates with me because, I pray every morning and my prayer is, show me where I can be useful. Just show me where I can be useful. Um, and maybe it's today it's as an actor, maybe it's tomorrow as a yoga teacher, maybe it's the next day as a hockey coach, or it doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, what matters is the legacy that I think counts, at least for me, is the people that I touch, the people that I can help and touch, and all the other stuff goes away. Houses, cars, whatever else goes away. But what doesn't go away is the impact you make on someone else's heart and someone else's life. And so yeah, that's. I mean, geez, we're so lucky, really, like to be artists, to be. in something we love so much that develops our character, it develops us into the people we're meant to be, and teaches us about, what life is all about. I mean, Jesus, life is not about cars and money. It's not about that at all. It's really about, like I said, how who have I helped and impacted and touched over the course of things. And what I also like about that is it just takes the ego all out of it. It's not about ego, you know what I mean? It's just about being of service and and um having a good day, you know.
Yeah, I because I ran a film commission for 33 years before I left to make movies full time. I had a lot of interns. Um, and I was speaking at a panel at Five Pounds College, the Five Pounds College Business Club is influential women or something like that, influential women in media. And I walked in and a young man walks up to me and he said to me, I was your intern 20 years ago. He said, and I was with you for about 2 or 3 weeks. He said, you got me on an Al Pacino movie. He said, and then I was in the office and you got a fax and you called me in and you said, Mike, isn't this you? And I'm like, oh my God, you're Mike. And he said, yeah. And that gave me my career. For 15 years, I ran that station. And then I went into whatever. And now I'm teaching at the school, what I love. But he said, you gave me my career. And it was just like, I remember telling John, see, now this makes it worth it. This makes it, the person you don't even realize you help. And that happens to John all the time where, he's been teaching for a long time and he just recently left that again to concentrate mostly on movies. And people will come up to him out of nowhere and say, you now I'm running this department because you taught me. Now I'm doing this because you believed in me. And this happens to him once every 2, 3 years. Somebody who he hasn't seen and maybe doesn't even really remember, but they remember him because he helped him. And that's everything. And now look at him and go, well, you know what? We might not be rolling in it, but look what we did. So then that person's going to help somebody, and then that person's going to help somebody, and you're right. I mean, yes, new cars are lovely. I think mine is 20 years old. John's is, they get us around as long as they're safe and life is wonderful. I don't care. It's what we get to do. Um, and yes, you hope the money comes, but I want that to happen because I want to be able to make the next movie. I want to be able to tell the next story. So what you build enables you to do that. And what I manifest is when I left the film office, I was a nervous wreck. I knew I'd been wanting to leave because I was doing that 9 to 5 every day. And then at night from 5 till 3 in the morning or weekends or vacations, I'm making movies. But I wanted to make sure when I left that my career was, I hit the ground running, which is what we did. But I kept saying, how do I leave a job that I kind of still like, that gives me benefits, and how do I do that? And it was a kind of a leap of faith.
Yeah.
And I knew that I wanted to manifest always having enough to take care of my needs, always having enough to be happy and healthy, and be able to make the movies I want to make when I want to make them. Um, and then everything else can just fill itself in, and it has. So it's manifesting, what you feel you want to do and what's really important to you. And I know that there's a lesson in everything I do, for
Yeah.
the people who need to hear it and the people who need to see it. It may not be everybody. That's not your audience, but your audience is there, So it's a matter of finding those people who the movie means something to, and that makes it all worth it. I mean, for Brimstone, for example, the short film that's on the circuit now, it's a very dark film about a young man with PTSD from a very abusive childhood, and his father always used religion as the theme, even though he wasn't a religious man. He used that, And the people who've come up to me after and just said, "That was my life. Thank you." It's people don't understand, or I have PTSD, and it's not from that, but that's what it looks like, and it helps them to see that. It's very healing. So there is that in our work. You touch people. Now, one of the good ones, it's about an honest lawyer who wants to do the right thing.
Yeah.
They're out there. Certainly they're out there. Maybe not enough, but they're out there.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, I get really passionate about current events and and justice and it really I'm really heartbroken about what's going on in the world today. Like it's to the point where I avoid the news just for my own mental health. Um, so but I still have hope. You know what I mean? I still have hope things can get better. And I think a lot about, well, what will make it better? And I came to the conclusion that what will make it better is if people start to keep promises to each other. That there's a thing called the butterfly effect. What happens in New York energetically, vibrationally affects other places in the world. And if I can keep my promises one at a time, I can be a part of the solution one day at a time. Um, so, that's really why I made the film because I want people to remember that it's an inside job. I may not be able to control what's happening in Washington, but I can keep my promises today, and I can, tell stories that I think are important and entertaining. Uh, because the crisis of hope that we're experiencing, certainly in this country, is really emotional and really traumatizing, and at least for me. So I needed comedy to make that palatable to the audience. And we did that. We were very, very lucky. Julie is a brilliant comedic writer and director. We had great actors who came in and were able to drop comedic diamonds along the way. And I get chills just thinking about how much um, we did together and how lucky we got. But it started with an idea. It started with the idea of like I just have to do something about this, and how can I be a part of the solution? I'm tired of hearing actors complain about the strike and this and that. Thank God I had one of the good ones the past 3.5 years, really, Debbie, because I was able to be like, okay, look, man, like I got that may be true. There may be a strike, and okay, whatever, that does suck. But I've got like $80,000 raised, and I just need another 20, and we're going to make our film. So I'm going to go raise 20K, and I'll talk to you later. Um, with no bad will or anything, but it just gave me something positive to strive with. Um, and and you know um, I'm going to wait and see how much money the film makes. We won't have our first numbers until June 30th. Before I dive into the next one, I want to see if it's how much money it's making. I know it's making money, but I want to see how much, and then we'll have our first full quarter by September 30th. I'll know how much it's made in a full quarter, and then yeah, like let's say it's making good money. I'll 100% go make another one. You know what I mean? Like I want to. Yeah, I mean, I keep thinking about the Raphael exhibit, which I know you're not here all the time, but I hope you get a chance to come see it because the dude only died at 37 years old, and the amount of work that he produced was amazing, really. It really reframed what's possible in terms of, and you're already super prolific, but you, especially someone like you, would be like, wow, it just inspires you more to produce.
Now I want to do that. I write like that. When you said that he sketches really quickly, that's how I write. I can't write in longhand because I cannot read my handwriting, and because my brain moves much faster than my hands, I can type. I don't know how, but just a ton of words a minute. And even if I have to go back and correct it, I can have the story. When I did Waitlist, it was a one-day short film, and I really wanted to know what happened to the characters, and I wrote the entire feature in 4 days. And I just couldn't stop, because I just the characters kept talking to me, and I was so excited about it. And so after I wrote it, I'm looking at it, I'm like, pretty good. And I sent it to a few people that I trust. I cleaned it up a little and sent it to a few people I trust. And Lucas Hassel, who I adore, who's a brilliant writer, and he's very I'm not going to say he's brutally honest, he's kindly honest. And if
Mhm.
there's something he doesn't like, he knows how to express it without like ripping you down and destroying it. But he read it and he said, have you seen, I know there's a couple of movies that were coming out, or I don't know if they were out yet, but I haven't seen them, that May, December romances, whatever. I'm like, no, I haven't seen anything. He goes, this is better. I'm like, ooh, okay. I feel good. I feel good about this. And, but like you, I want to do something light because things were so dark. I need to do something just nice and fun and people could feel good about and just to lift this cloud, that's been over everything. And I found I was so lucky. I knew that the pivotal scene of it when it was a short film was the hallway scene. And I knew it needed the right music. And so I reached out to some composer friends, and one of mine, my friends is a brilliant musician, but she does bluegrass and folk. I'm like, no, it's not that. This is what I need. I have the perfect person for you. And she introduced me to Rory Kelly, who does almost every song on the soundtrack is hers. And I told her the song I wanted. She sent me everywhere I go. I listened to like, that's it. That's it. I just want this whole movie to revolve around that song. And Rob Riley, who edited it, looked at the rest of her catalog and he managed to place most of her music all throughout it, but I knew that's what it needed. It needed to lift people's hearts. Whether they like the story or not, everybody's different, but it felt good. Even editing it, you watch a movie 5,000 times before it's done and you're like, oh God, I never want to see it again. But I never felt that way about this movie. Because every time I saw it, I would smile at the performances and smile at the music and smile at, what everybody else had done. So it really made it all worth it. So what's next? What else do you have going on at this point?
Well, I got called back for a play at the Florida Studio Theater in Sarasota, Florida, for a cool play, playing a dog, which I'm I'm noticeably excited about. I really like the script a lot. It's all about a woman who gets divorced and gets a dog and becomes a dog mom, and the dog teaches her about being open and curious and excited again instead of guarded. So it's a cool callback because I get to play the dog and the ex-husband. So I get to play like the curious, open heart and then like the kind of insecure, gnarly guy who's not unlovable, but he's just, insecure. So that's kind of like I'm really trying to hone in on the work and not whether or not I booked the job. I remember a callback I had for FBI where I didn't prepare properly and I was so mad at myself. And then like a week later, they called me in again for a different role. And I was like, all I want to do is be over prepared. And of course I booked that job, right? Because I wasn't even thinking, I didn't care so much about the booking. I just was like, let me be ready, 100% ready. And it switched the focus. So I'm using that experience. Um, and then lots of cool things coming up. Um, I won't say exactly because some of them are in the works, but um, you know, I'm open for business. You know what I mean? Like I'm in alignment. I'll wrap up with this. I think a lot about alignment. You know what I mean? And I think, well, actors who are stars have a level of alignment that is luminous, right? They if they don't want to audition for something, they're like, nah, I'm not doing that. I don't want to, they're not like, oh, I hope I don't miss an opportunity. No, they don't, that's not, so I think that's really where I'm at. What's next for me is a higher level of alignment where I don't throw myself into everything because I'm afraid I'll miss an opportunity. I more trust that, you know what, like, I'm not into this. I'm not going to pretend like I am. Um, and I'll focus on the thing that I know I am into and keep my alignment tight.
Let's show the trailer and then we'll come back and we'll say goodbye. But let's show the trailer for one of the good ones.
Okay, cool.
I'll get it up there in a second.
A lot of people hate lawyers, and yeah, there's some bad ones.
Maybe there's something I could do to get out of this.
I'm one of the good ones. I prosecute bad ones so they're held accountable. Yeah, no, I mean, I heard they are looking at Susie for her husband's murder.
Yeah, she didn't do it.
How do you know?
I'm leading the investigation.
Sometimes I feel like the ham in a corruption sandwich. So what are you thinking?
Something's up, man. Something's way.
You go after dirty lawyers, white-collar criminals, not mob guys with blood on their hands.
How is it gonna be okay?
Yeah, I agree. It's not ideal, but it's better than the alternative.
It's a little bit of a conflict, don't you think, investigating your own first assistant for murder?
Why are you being such a hard ass?
Yeah, that's what I said.
He thinks he's the bulwark between good and evil.
Well, you never know when someone might recognize you from court. Someone with a grudge.
Once you start asking the real questions, the whole thing falls apart.
So that was a lot of fun watching that. I love indie films because I love that we can go there with almost nothing and still make a film that will rival what you're seeing in the studios, and it's not the same old thing. So
Yeah.
so that's what's fun about it. And my hope is when people complain so much about the material all being the same, that they help push indie film, because we can bring new product. We can bring something different. So my hope is that's what happens, and I'm good about it. Whatever's going to happen, we can't control it. We just have to do the best we can and let the universe does what the universe does. And
100%, Debbie.
and so far, we're doing pretty good with that. But anyway, I want to thank Tom so much for being my guest here today. You have anything you want to add? Any advice for anybody?
Just one question. What was it like to work with Al Pacino?
Oh my God. Yeah, I worked with Al when I was film commissioner. Mostly I worked with the location team and whatever, but I did get to talk to him, and he's a very, very cool guy. It's unfortunate that somebody spilled the beans to the press. So we were talking for about 5 minutes, and then all these cars started pulling up. So he had to get ushered back into the trailer. But it's a really, really nice man. Him and Anthony Hopkins. I love Anthony Hopkins. Met him twice, and actually got to have some really nice conversations with him. But they're awesome people, at least from what, you get to know in those short periods of time. But
Yeah.
he was never on my set. Not yet. But biggest person I think I've worked with, probably like Kathy Moriarty, who is phenomenal, and I just love her. She's become a dear friend. A lot of TV folks, and I know somebody else is going to say, excuse me. So I'm not going to name everybody, but
Yeah.
I think most people are good people that want to work, and they want new material. They want new things they can work on and have some input, towards. So that's really a cool thing. But
Yeah.
anyway, thank you, Tom. If you want to reach Tom, I'm going to have all his socials in. It will be in the posting when I put this up tomorrow on our YouTube channel. But I want to thank you so much for joining us. I feel like we have so much to think for how we feel, what we put out, and what we get back.
Same here, Deborah. Same here.
Thank you so much. It's been great.
My pleasure. That was fun. Thanks a lot.
Bye. So
Bye-bye.
everybody, make sure you watch The Best of Intentions. This is an awesome interview. A nice new friend. So that feels really cool. And thank you for watching and listening to The Best of Intentions.